There are no more time limits, and there are no more restrictions on how far we can go in Cities Skylines 2, which means I can finally say, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Cities Skylines 2. It is a cold and snowy day in the city of Linden, and not a whole lot has changed since our second gameplay video a couple of weeks ago. We are a big town, which was about as far as we were allowed to go in that video, but here's the exciting thing about there being no more time limits and no more restrictions. This video can be as long as I want. I don't have to cut out hours of comment. Like those 30-minute videos, the first one took like 3 hours. There was so much cut out of that. The second one was a little bit less, but there was still so much cut out of that. This one, there was stuff cut out of it, you know, I don't have to like rush through things. I can take time to explain things now, which I'm really excited to do. So I want to start by coming down here to the progression panel, and I want to have a look at our milestones because we did become a big town at the end of that last gameplay video, which basically gave us a bunch of money, which we don't quite have anymore. It also increased the loan limit, and it gave us high density housing as well as oil drilling. So we got a new industry, we got some new housing, but we don't actually have any demand for high density housing right now. We have a lot of demand for low density housing, which is something we'll deal with. I'm thinking we're going to build a suburb today. And I think I also went through and unlocked some things because I only have one development point left. I don't remember what I unlocked. It was a couple of weeks ago, but I do want to start moving into a little bit more education. We have a high school here. We have an elementary school here. And if we go into the info panel for education, we actually have a bit of a bottleneck right now. We have 1,500 spaces. We have capacity for 1,500 students. We have 1,965 that are eligible. So essentially, we've maxed out the elementary school, which is going to create a bottleneck for the high school. We have almost 5,000 people eligible for college, almost 1,000 eligible for university. And education is key in Cities Skylines 2 to a lot of things. So that's something I want to get to. But before we do that, I want to build a suburb. And the way I'm going to try and do it is by coming down to this space, which is to the, we'll say this is the south of the city. We have this space in here surrounded by highways. And what's interesting about this spot is we actually have a little bit of fertile land in here. So not only do I want to do a suburb, I want to do some farms in there as well. So we're going to get started as we usually do with some road tools. And I'm going to put a little roundabout about there, to be completely honest. And then over on this side, I want to do exactly the same thing. And I think my only option is going to be elevated, which, I mean, that's fine. We can bring the terrain up to meet that in a little bit. When it comes to the roads in this space, I want to do just something that looks a little bit more, I don't know. I'm not going to say natural because it's a bunch of roads that we're laying out. So it's not like, you know, it's a natural layout. It's not, but we'll do this to get started. We'll do a little section of road over here as well, just to get started. So we'll go for about 112 there. And essentially we connect those together. And I think we just follow the contour lines. So we have a lot of fertile land in here. I think what we'll do is just use the continuous tool for this. We'll come off of here about roughly 70 meters, and we'll just sort of come around like this. Again, trying to follow anyway, the contour lines as best we can. Nothing, you know, nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. It doesn't have to be exact, but just something that's, you know, respecting, what is it? What's respecting the topography? That's the phrase that comes to mind with this kind of thing. As best I can. It's me. All right. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I want to get rid of you for a second. It's me. We're not going to be, you know, doing anything that's super artistic here in terms of respecting any topography. I will build roads as I please, but that's fine. That's kind of what I was looking for. And then I want to come up towards the highway as well. I do want to leave a little bit of space in here for maybe a commercial spot. So I think what we'll do as well is just come off of here about 112. So we have this nice little, you know, corner here, nice bit of zoning, all that good stuff. And then basically I'm going to push around towards the highway. I'm going to loop this all around, fill in the space in the middle, and I want to use some roundabouts to create cul-de-sacs because that's something you can do in Cities Skylines 2 that I actually really enjoy. So let's very quickly get a solid layout here. right, so this is going to be our rough road layout for the suburb. We have a couple of dead ends in here though, and I do want to turn those into cul-de-sacs. So what you can do is just use the small roundabout and just put one right at the end of those roads. It doesn't look perfect, like it's very clearly a roundabout, but from a distance, you kind of get the right idea, you know? From a distance, it serves the purpose, it does what I need it to do, and that's all I want it to do. Now, I've been very deliberate in leaving a lot of space between a lot of the areas that we can zone here, because something I want to do with this space is absolutely fill it with trees, which will have to grow, but I also want to put some pedestrian paths in here, so it's a very walkable space as well. I saw, I think it was on, I don't know if it's TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Yes, I've gotten into watching shorts. I know I've swore off those things for for so long. But I saw this thing that was like, hey, these two houses in Florida share a backyard, but if you wanted to drive from one to the other, it takes 20 minutes because the suburb wasn't built for like walkability. It was built for cars. And so I want to make this walkable. That's something I'm on a walkable cities kick right now. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. So a lot of this is going to have a lot of paths, but before we even get to that, we're going to need to make sure it has power and water, because as we know, as we've been taught, as we've learned, power does not go underneath highways automatically. So what I think I'm going to do is just manually run some power lines underneath some of these roads. That just seems like the better idea. I could do the elevated ones, these little tiny pylons. I can make them a little bit bigger if I wanted to as well. But I think I'm just going to keep them underground for the time being. That just seems a whole lot easier, and just run them just underneath the roads roughly. I can't actually see the roads, which is kind of the problem. There we go. We'll just run them underneath the roads. I can also curve these, I'm pretty sure, but they snap really nicely to the middle of the road as well. So that's actually kind of perfect. And then what we'll do is just continue this up to here. And in theory, I should just be able to sort of snap it to any of this. Now, before we go ahead and start building these houses, I do want to have a look at the fertile land that we're dealing with, because we have a few different types of farming industry that we can use here. We have livestock, we have grain, we have vegetable, we have textiles. If we go into the money panel, if we go into production, at the moment, there is a pretty good deficit of grain. There's actually a deficit of pretty much all of them, but livestock is definitely the least in demand. So we want to have a little bit more grain and a little bit more, vegetables, a little bit less cotton and a whole lot less livestock. I'm not sure I'm going to be that precise with all of this, but my thinking is basically, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say we want grain farming, and I'm just going to be plopping it on this road. It's going to be opposite some houses, and that's fine. That's just how it's going to be. So what I'll do with this guy is go ahead and now lay out the farm the way I want it to be. And I am just going to go back about as far as I think is reasonable. I don't need them to be absolutely enormous, but I do want them to have some good space. And I also want them to follow the roads a little bit. So we'll bring this right down. We'll bring this out right down as well. And like I said, I want it to follow the roads. So let's, for the time being, turn off all snapping. We'll keep the 90-degree snapping on here, which is actually going to be a pain. So we'll turn off all snapping and just bring this around the roads a little bit. It doesn't need to be a huge farm. It doesn't need to be absolutely enormous. Honestly, about that size on that side will be fine. And on this side, probably something similar. We'll go to, let's say we go a little tiny bit further, up to about there should be good. And so this is our farming industry. It looks a little bit weird, I'll be honest. It does definitely look a little bit weird, but we have some vegetables here. We have some cotton right here. We have some grain right here, and we have some livestock right about here. I'm not expecting these things to be crazy, super efficient right now, but they will hopefully get there. And eventually I'm going to just sort of surround them with trees so they look a little bit better as well. But for right now, ooh, we have a little bit of high density residential demand. Is that because we have a building over here that happens to be abandoned? It absolutely is. 21 Garland Street has been abandoned, and the one next door has collapsed. So I'm going to get rid of both of those, and I'm going to have a little bit of a look and see what I can do for demand. And I think I'm going to do some EU high density housing just because I can. I want to see if it builds. It absolutely will. That is going to be a huge tower. Okay. I'm not going to look at that right now. I'm not going to look at it because I have a suburb to build. I don't want to get distracted. I'm not looking at it right now. I'm not looking at it. That's not what I'm doing. What we're doing is we're going to use, oh, do I want to do EU low density housing or North American? I'm going to do EU for this one. We're probably going to build another suburb at some point, and it's probably not going to be too long until we do it. So we'll do European style for this. We'll do North American for another. And honestly, all of this is going to be zoned except for this bit and this bit probably as well. I do want to get some parks, some plazas, some dog parks and things like that in here as well. But before I let this build, I want to go ahead and I want to get some paths in here like I talked about. So very, very quickly, let's try and do a pass on this that's going to make it as walkable as is possible. And I'm thinking I'm also going to do some crosswalks. I was thinking I wasn't going to bother with the crosswalks, but I think we're going to do crosswalks is what we're going to do. So we'll bring some paths sort of around like this. I'm going to try and weave in and out of the trees as well, so I can keep as many of those as possible and make this just like a really pleasant place to walk through. I'm also going to have to turn off snapping, I think, to get through that little gap, which is totally fine. And yeah, that's kind of my goal, is to make it as nice as I possibly can to walk through this space, which admittedly, that's a bit of a nightmare path, I'm sure, but I'm kind of willing to give it a shot. And so I guess with the paths in there, the last thing to do before we let the simulation run is going to be to cover this place in a whole bunch of trees. So we're going to use the tree brush. We're going to go and increase the size to about 300 with about 75% strength. Actually, let's just increase that to 500. And I'm just going to sort of go across this. It's going to be a bunch of small little oak trees for now because they are going to have to grow. A lot of them are going to get replaced with buildings anyway, which is totally fine. And I'm sort of going to feather it out a little bit into the surrounding area. A lot of this space is probably going to be suburbs as well at some point, but for now, that's what we'll do. We'll throw some chestnut trees in there as well, which seems like a pretty solid idea. Gets a nice little bit of variety in terms of color. Do a couple of pine trees sort of through the middle. Maybe we've got a bunch of those growing in there. Spruce trees, I'm going to pass up on. Alder is a pretty good shout as well for a bit of color on that one as well. And that will be, I'm going to say that will be pretty good once those actually grow. So now the very last thing we're going to do before we let the simulation run is I'm going to put a little bit of commercial zoning in here because I think that'll be a good idea. And I'm also going to build a little post office down here because I think that would be a good idea for this space as well. I like the idea that they have a little local post office down here. So we'll place it right about there. That'll give them nice coverage in that space. It's not a bad looking building either. And then what I think I'll do next to this is I'm going to get myself a little section of road. I'm going to turn off, let's see, snap to guidelines. No, we're going to bring this road back to about there, should be fine. And then what I want to do is I want to get a little parking lot, and I do want to put it on that road, but I also want to do a little park here as well. So something like just a small park would be kind of nice. So what I think I'm going to do is say that I don't really want this to snap. I mean, I do want it to snap to the road, but mostly I want to try and get it right into that corner as much as I possibly can. So we'll go for something kind of like this. It's not going to be exact, unfortunately, but honestly, that's kind of okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. So right about there for the little park. And then for the parking lot, it's going to be kind of a similar story. So the entrance to it's right down there at the bottom. We'll try and get this rotated as nicely as we possibly can. And I'm going to try and get it just as close to everything as I can as well. That's looking pretty solid there. We'll bring it down as much as we can. We'll plop it right about there. That gives us milestone 9, which means we're a great town. We got a bunch of money, a bunch of development points, and a bunch of tiles. We'll have a look at that in just a second. Honestly, I don't mind this. I mean, it's a parking lot. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but maybe I don't want to do a parking lot. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do a parking lot here. It does have parking at the back. I don't know if these guys are going to need it. It's not, thinking about it mechanically, it's not necessarily a destination. So maybe we'll not do the parking lot, and maybe we'll not do that park. Maybe we'll do something a little bit bigger and a little bit fancier, like a plaza. We could do some large parks in here. That would actually be really nice for this space as well, I think. Just some nice big park in here. Maybe we do a large playground. It's not all that big though. Large plaza, definitely not. Some sports stuff as well would be good. I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll do something a little bit larger. And just like that, we have a bunch of low-density residential buildings coming together. This space might take a little minute to fill up, but I did decide while I was, waiting for things to get going, I did decide to start just placing some poplar trees along the highway, just in these couple of spaces. I'm not going to line the entire thing, but I just thought it looked kind of nice. A nice little natural barrier between this entire space and the highway. We also have, obviously, the post office here and a whole bunch of parks. We have a small playground, a dog park, a large playground, and a small park, just because, I don't know, I think this is overdoing it a little bit. I don't really think we need to cluster these like this, but I have, because I guess I'm an idiot, and that's a thing that I want to do. I also really want to see this space fill, but I think we're going to be waiting for a minute. So I guess while we're waiting, let's look over here to look at these guys. We have our first proper high rises. I mean, they're not the most exciting looking buildings in the world. I'm going to be honest with you. They're definitely not architectural marvels, but they are pretty good, which is pretty cool. I like them a lot. I like sort of the red balconies. I like the yellow balconies on this one as well. We have 5 out of 144 houses or households. That's great. 2 out of 144 on that one. I'll tell you what might be a good idea. I think, I don't know that we need these. I get the feeling they're going to be abandoned and probably collapse somewhere thereafter. But for now, that'll be totally fine. Let's, I suppose, let's wait for this space to build a little bit. In fact, we don't need to wait. What we can do is go around here and add in some, we can add in some bus shelters. I don't really think I'm ever going to use the bus stop signs. I think I'm probably always going to use the shelters. And I think the way I want to try and do this is, I don't actually know. No, that's like, oh, here's my great idea. I don't have one. I think what we'll do is we'll have a stop by the post office. That makes sense, right? I think a stop in here is maybe a little bit too close. So I'm going to say right here for another one. I don't know if that's too close as well, but we'll see. I'm going to say we're going to have a stop on this corner as well. So it's going to sort of cut down through here. And then I guess we'll have a stop right before. This is a little bit close to that one, but we'll have a stop right about there as well. Ooh, I'm noticing the colors are changing. I get the feeling we've just entered spring. We absolutely have, which is totally fine. Those might be a little close together. There might be room for another stop in the middle of those, but for now, I'm going to leave it be. And I'm also sort of thinking I need to build a bus station because I'm clustering a lot of my bus stops in this one space. I think it'd be a really good idea to maybe go in here. I am really excited to see the trees all change color. I think I'm going to clear out these buildings and I think I'm going to build myself a bus station. I just kind of think it makes sense. I think we kind of need one. I don't know if I want to put it right on the main road. That might be a terrible idea, but I don't know. I might do it anyway. I might. It's a terrible idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's definitely me building this city. Sometimes apparently I never learn. Let's see. What does this even look like? I've never played with this before. It's a bus station. It does what you would expect it to do. Let's shift it along a little bit so it's on slightly flatter ground. It's not perfectly flat, but it'll do. And then I think what I'm going to do is just move all of my bus stops into here. That seems like it would be a solid idea. I don't know that it is a solid idea. In fact, looking at the way these buses come in here, they have to like loop back on themselves, which I really don't like, but to each their own, I guess. Let's leave you there for a second. Have I got 2 bus stops on that one line? I absolutely do. Can I put it there? Can I hold on a minute. Can I move you to there? That's not what I want. That is not what I want to do. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I think I'm screwing things up a little bit. I think I might have just got rid of, oh dear. All right, we'll be fine. I'm sure everything will be fine. Let's put you there. Let's put you there. So now they're doing what I need them to do. Am I missing a bus line? I think I'm missing a bus line. I think one of them was supposed to come in here. I don't know if it does anymore. It looks, no, we have still got 2 buses going to this one stop. Let's move you to there. There we go. So now everything has its own platform. That's good. The reason I wanted to do that, by the way, is simply so I can create a line down here. So from there to here, going all the way down through there, and then basically into the station again, which is annoyingly going to have to look back on itself. Although now that I think about it, they technically don't, because I can do waypoints, can I? So that bus doesn't need to do that. It can do something else, right? So that makes such sense. What I mean is I can technically, I think, set a waypoint for this bus line somewhere up here. So like if I put it right there, it'll come down this way. So it'll cut through the city, which probably it would make sense to have it stop elsewhere, but we'll have it come straight through here, straight back up that way. And then that way it's not looping back in itself, which is what I want. As for these guys that do loop back in themselves, I don't love that. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of it. So if I was to put a waypoint, oh man, I'd have to put a waypoint all the way down there to get these guys to stop doing that, which seems counterproductive, counterintuitive. It's counter something. It's not a good idea is what it is. Also, can I expand this? We can do a parking fee. Interesting. I don't really think I want to. We can upgrade it with extra platforms, which is pretty cool. We can get some platforms back there. We can upgrade it with a taxi stop. That actually seems like a good idea. And we can upgrade it with an electric bus recharging station, which increases their range significantly. I like that idea as well. I don't think we need either of those things, but I do think having this little central bus station is going to be better than having all the people using all of the different bus stops out here in the streets. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the bus stops since we don't need them anymore right there. And we'll see if that's good. We'll see if it's bad. I've got no idea. This is part of the fun. I've also messed up the zoning down here. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a parking lot. So while we're waiting for things to happen, we should probably have a look at how we're doing in terms of milestones, because we did just get level 10, which is great town. That does give us high density businesses, which is very exciting. And I'm looking forward to playing around with those. But we also have 10 development points. So what do we want to spend those on? That's the real question. We could look into things like police headquarters. Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, but I'm thinking I kind of want to start moving towards subways and trams. I also really like the idea of airports. We have talked about that before. It might not be a terrible idea. Large sports parks and tourist attractions. That wouldn't be terrible. I think the large sports parks I want, because I do want to build another elementary school. We talked earlier about how we have got a bit of a bottleneck in terms of education. So might not be a bad idea. Do we want a server farm maintained by the city to supply the city with more network capacity? I don't know that we do. A telecom tower provides a wide range of telecommunication services ranging from intercontinental television broadcasts to long-range cellular networks, greatly increasing network capacity citywide. I don't know that we need that either. I don't think we have the population for it. Although we do need to get some broadband coverage out into the suburb. So I suppose, by all accounts, we're kind of getting to the place where, we can kind of pick and choose what we want as we want it, because we don't necessarily need it. So I'm gonna say trams. I think trams will be fun. Do I want subways? I don't think we need them. I don't think we need them yet. We'll need them eventually. I think trams we can get sooner than later. Subways we don't need. A police headquarters. We have got the hospital, so we get the police headquarters, and we'll get the larger fire station as well, just so we can start to provide, huge amounts of coverage to everywhere. Now, I did go ahead and zone a little bit of high density commercial here because I was curious to see what it looked like, and it looks all right. Definitely not too bad. We've got a couple of people waiting for taxis right there by the looks of it. We don't really have anyone waiting for buses, which is a bit of a concern, but I'm sure that'll change. I think that line is the one that goes out to the suburb anyway. So not necessarily the end of the world. There's not really that many people living out here just yet. So that's kind of to be expected. And we do actually have our little bit of commercial zoning here as well, which is lovely. So that's good. They get somewhere to shop. I don't know what it is. It looks like, I don't know. It's a hostel apparently. So that's the bad bug. The bad bug hostel. That's That's a name. That's a name is what that's a choice. That's a choice of name. Anyway, here's what I'm thinking I want to do. I want to come off of this roundabout with another road, and I'm going to go about 112 meters that way. So these two straight sections are exactly the same. And I am going to go a little bit further. I'm going to say another 112, and I'm going to put a roundabout right at the end of this. It's going to be a little medium roundabout. It doesn't need to be huge, but it does need to be a roundabout. And I'm going to just continue straight through a little bit further. Let's see. Have we got like a relatively flat bit of, we have flat terrain back here, but that might be too far away from everything for my liking. I need flat terrain because I want to build an elementary school. Although, I mean, if we have got the connections, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So maybe we don't need the roundabout. And what we can do instead is we can use this tool here to just give us a nice little curvy road that sort of, you know, follows the terrain, follows the contour lines as best we can. We are going to be going uphill here, which is sort of unavoidable. So we have Cedar Street. What we'll do is just put an elementary school right on there. It obviously has no connections right now, which is totally fine. We'll come out this way and we'll come out this way. And what I want to do is I want to come back a little bit like, let's see, let's do 112 for now with a pedestrian road. I also want this guy to be expanded a little bit. I do want to do some of these children's clinics. And I think what I'll do is, how much are these? What do they do? +5 health for students. That seems pretty good to me. So we'll do a couple of those. We could do 3 of them. I don't know if I want to do 3 of them. I don't think we need to do 3 of them. So I'm not going to do 3 of them. I think that'd be a little bit extra, but we'll do those, and then we'll fill the rest of this with the large sports parks that I talked about. Although in saying that, it turns out these things are a little bit larger than I thought they were necessarily going to be, which is fine. I think we can get like a soccer field out here and everything should be okay. I think the American football stadium might be a little bit large. The soccer field's definitely a good shout though. In terms of the smaller sports parks, we could do something like a tennis court in the middle here. It looks like it would fit pretty nicely. I will need a road back there if I want to do that. Basketball courts, I might be able to get 2 of them, but I think regardless, what we're going to have to do, unfortunately, and I was hoping I wouldn't have to do a whole bunch of this, is line this with roads, and then we'll go in here and we can do 2 basketball courts. We can do 1 tennis court. I think I'm going to do 1 tennis court because I really like the vibrant color. And I like the idea that I can go ahead and put some trees around that to decorate it a bit more. So that's going to be like the main chunk of the school. I really wish I could place parks on paths. I miss that so much, but it's okay. And then, oh, we have landmarks as well. I forgot about these. And then what I think we'll do is figure out where the soccer field's going to go. So let's have a little bit of a look at our, can I see my contour lines? Can I see them in here? I honestly don't for the life of me remember. So we have flat space over here. This is, I think, where the soccer field's going to have to go. And I guess what we'll do, because my thinking here is I want vehicles to sort of come in one way and go out the other. I think what I'm going to do is change this to be a one-way road going that way. So we have 1 lane sort of coming in, and then at the end, you're going to sort of turn back. It doesn't need to be a huge loop, but just something like that essentially is my thinking for this whole thing. It's completely unnecessary, but it's what I want to do with it. And then it'll just be like a 2-lane road that comes in. Right. So that's kind of how you get around. I think what we can do at this end then is extend the little pedestrian road out a little bit. I really don't like that I have to use these, but it's what we have to do. I'm also just going to flatten the terrain a little bit just to make sure that we're actually dealing with a really nice flat section of terrain here. So we will now go ahead and extend this guy out for 120. We can go ahead and place our soccer field on here as well, which I think I'm going to leave a gap on. Is there a gap on the side there? I honestly don't know. There is. I'm going to leave a gap there so I can play around with trees. And I think that's probably something I'm going to, I don't know if I like that. I feel like that should almost be an angle to make it look a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit too, everything's a little bit too rigid and square right now. I almost wonder if it'd be worth doing another sports field of some sort. Maybe like what was the other one? There was like a pool in there, right? The community pool might not be a bad idea. Do it at the back so we throw off the symmetry a little bit, or do another soccer field to throw off the symmetry a little bit. Maybe we do both. I don't know. So if I did a road right there for example, I could do a soccer field here, but that pushes out towards the water. I don't like that. I think the community pool might be the way to go. I think that's kind of what we're going to do with it. So I'm going to get rid of this street. I'm going to just extend it about as far as it needs to go. And then for the soccer field, I'm going to sort of do the same thing because it does have some paving around it. So it's not the end of the world. Why is that wanting to be elevated? There we go. So something like this is fine. And I guess we could do some parking as well. If I throw some parking on the left side here, it is going to create a degree of symmetry that I might not want. So my other option would be to throw parking on this side, but that's going to create not a cliff, but it's going to have a very steep hill if I do that. But again, I think it's going to throw off the symmetry. So I'm going to flatten this all out a little bit. I say a little bit of flattening is what we're doing there. Just a little bit. And then in front of this is where we're going to do some parking. So we have some choices. We have the large parking lot. We have the very large parking lot. Honestly, the very large one might not be the worst idea. I also kind of like the idea of just a couple of medium ones, just so we're saving on space. Not that we necessarily need to. Space is, you know, we have a lot of it out here, but I don't know. I don't know if we need it to be this big. I don't know that this parking lot needs to be that big. I think the very large one might be big enough. We could do two of those, or we could just do, I think we'll just do one. We'll just do one. This is going to be a destination. This is going to be somewhere that Sims are going to want to drive to. So we'll just do one and that will be okay. So now the last thing I want to do before I connect this to the roads is actually go and I want to grab the tiles just there so that I can build out there a little bit. And I also want to go in and I want to use my tree brush to remove a lot of these trees. Now, this is something a few people have talked about as not being a thing in Cities 2. If you turn off toggle snapping while you're in here, so turn off this one. I don't think you can select that one, but you turn off this one, which is the remove only matching type. If I just right click now, it just removes everything. So you can absolutely remove trees in mass. This is something I wasn't aware of in the first two gameplay videos, but you can totally do it. You just remove that toggle and then hold right click and it just removes everything, which is lovely. And the reason I wanted to do that is because basically I want to put some paths around this to sort of just make it seem like it has a very defined space. That sounds very pretentious, but that's what I'm thinking. I want this to have like a defined area, kind of like what I do for an airport, where you surround it in paths just to make it look like it's you know, like it's got a border to it. We don't have fences to play with in City Skylines 2 at the moment, so I'm going to use paths instead of fences. So what we'll do is we'll come in here. I'm going to turn on whatever snapping I feel like. I don't need my guidelines. We'll just snap to the grid, basically. And we can do something like this. That's actually not the tool I wanted at all. We'll do something like this. We can do, I'm going to say, do I want this to snap exactly? I'm going to say something like that should be fine. What did I do down there? We'll give it a little bit more space. That's fine. We'll bring this over. And then on this side, kind of a similar story. I'm going to go out a little bit and I'm going to come down like this. So that gives us just like a nice little defined border on this thing. I can play with trees, maybe use the poplar trees to outline this a bit more. And I think on this side, we'll do sort of the same thing. It doesn't need to be exactly the same, but we'll just give ourselves a little bit of room around all of this. Just so, again, we can clearly see, you know, what is the school and what is the limit on the school here. So just like that should be fine. And you know what? With a few trees, I don't think this looks too bad. I actually decided to surround it with some spruce trees rather than the poplar trees, and I like it. I think this will look really good once all of the forest around it has grown as well, but I'm kind of okay with this. I think it looks pretty good. We also have a bus stop up here. So the buses from the suburb down here can make their way up there and do their thing. We're also having some issues with some houses getting abandoned around here. Some people are complaining about high rent, which is admittedly fair enough. Rent at the moment and taxes and all that stuff are going to be pretty high. But I think this place looks pretty good. I'm actually really pleased with it. I think it's a really good looking little suburb. So what I think I'm going to do, since we have got this demand creeping in here for more low density residential, is I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build out another small suburb. I'm not going to go quite as big with it because I'm not really thinking I'm going to put a highway connection in for it. at least on this end. So very quickly, and I do mean quickly, I don't want this video to go on for hours and hours and hours. We're going to try and build ourselves something that kind of resembles another suburb. So let's see. And would you look at that, we have another suburb. I don't know that I like the layout of this one quite as much as the one down here. I think this one sort of flows much nicer. So I might work on this one a little bit. I might actually just add in another break to the highway so we can sort of loop it around in the same way that we did with this one. But I think this is okay for now. That's kind of why I've left these guys at the end here, because in theory, I could bring this road down a little bit lower, maybe connect it to the highway somewhere like here. Do I want so am I in the process of talking myself into extending this suburb? I think I might be. I don't know that I'm going to do it today. I don't think we need to do it today. I don't think we're going to have the low density residential demand to need to do that today. But I like this. I really like how the school looks. There's a good number of sims going here, which is absolutely fantastic. It's super efficient as well, which is absolutely fantastic. There are so many people using the buses to get up here, and I've already extended the buses into this space. So the buses can come down, pick people up, drop them off, do all that good stuff, go back into the city, and then repeat the cycle going through the two suburbs. I think it's fine. I think it's a good looking little space. And honestly, it does sort of, it's a little intimidating that the suburb is about the size of the city right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus a little bit, not today, because we're about to wrap things up for today, but I think in the next episode and moving forward, I want to focus on redesigning this space here, because this is going to be the city center, but I think it's going to be important to make it look like a city center. Right now, this very much looks like, you know, Babby's first city Skylines II, rather than something that's going to become a city, mostly because I love the row houses, but there's just a few too many of them. I've gotten a little bit carried away with that. I also want to mention that I know there is demand everywhere for not enough customers. That is, I'm pretty sure, a bug at the moment. I'm not trying to make excuses. I think it's a known issue in the game at the moment. This is a pre-release version, of course. Ooh, a lot of my trees have grown. Would you look at that? Wait, what does the cemetery look like? Oh, it looks so good. It looks so good with fully grown trees. Look at that. Look at all of you coming together. This looks fantastic with some actually fully grown trees. Not bad. Not bad at all. Oh, this one looks good as well. Oh, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. That's so good. Yeah, that's a known issue. It's what you'll notice is a lot of these buildings will complain about there not being enough customers, but then they're, you know, 124% efficient. They don't ever really get abandoned. Some of them do, like here and there, some of them will, but very rarely do they actually get abandoned. So it's a known thing in City Skylines 2 at the moment. This, on the other hand, that's a me thing. The high rent that is true. Rent is very high around here. But I suppose before we wrap things up, I do want to have a look at production to see how we're doing. And honestly, we're not doing anywhere near as well as I would like. Although in saying that, we are producing 144 tons of logs per month, and that still gives us a deficit. So at the very least, I assume we're sort of saving some money here, which is fine. If we look at the budget, we are still losing money every month, although you wouldn't really think it with how much we seem to constantly have. So not really too sure what's going on there. It's not necessarily the end of the world. Either way, I think we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We're going to be trying to have some daily City Skylines 2 for the next couple of weeks. The next couple of days are a little bit hectic, though, so no, I hate to say it. I hate to say it. There'll be something tomorrow, but I'm doing like a staycation thing over the next couple of days. So at the very least, from next Monday, it'll be City Skylines 2 at least once a day, if not more than that, every day for the foreseeable future. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.